ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. Verse number 67. जागृत्यामन्तरात्मा विषयसुखकृते अनेकयत्नान् विधास्यन् श्राम्यत् सर्वेन्द्रियौघोऽधिगतमपि सुखं विस्मरन् याति निद्राम् विश्रामाय स्वरूपे त्वतितरसुलभं तेन चातीन्द्रियं हि सुखं सर्वोत्तमं स्यात् परिणतिविरसात् इन्द्रियोत्थात् सुखाच्च. Continuing with our favorite discussion. What is the most favorite discussion? Of the sleep state. Because the sleep state is universally beloved. When all the time, but with special reference to Vedanta classes. Okay, it is especially beloved. And so this sleep state, in the absence of instruction, in the absence of Vedanta instruction, becomes the to go. What should I say? It becomes the magnet for this understanding. Becomes a crucial key to understand that happiness which is experienced, because otherwise happiness is always understood and not in the sense of some abstraction, but as something dear to one. Why? Because it is always experiential. And one of the what is that called? Criticisms, we can call it critiques, leveled at Vedanta is that it is not experiential. People say, oh, it is theory, and then after that you have to do some experiencing. Nothing to do, just fall asleep. You will have all the experiences you need to know the spelling and the meaning of Swarupananda. And so this is something which the authors of all the Prakarana Granthas, various kinds of secondary texts, have mined and plumbed the depths of the sleep state in order to eke out, in order to squeeze the sleep state of every single piece of knowledge about Swarupananda that one can get. This is why, because there are two reasons. One is it is so personal, it is intimately experienced, and secondly, it is that experience can be used to generate this understanding. Because experiences are by themselves mute; they don't tell you anything. One will have a series of experiences throughout the course of the day, throughout the course of one's life. But then you have to go to somebody, you have to go to a friend, or you have to go to the psychotherapist, or sometimes the psychotherapist needs to go to a Swami. Anyway, then you find out what is the meaning of this experience. That is knowledge. When you are looking into the meaning of the experience, it is knowledge. Without understanding the meaning of the experience is by itself unable to speak. There is no understanding there. Every experience begs understanding. And that is what the cognitive clarity with which the study of Vedanta Shastra imparts. That is what one needs. Because experiences are too many. You can have as many as you want. But then, what do they mean? And here, the sleep state has been analyzed out of existence for this reason, because it is universal and because it is coming very close to that happiness which one desires. And those of you who have followed the Chandogya Bhashya classes, there we have another very interesting analysis of the sleep state, very deep analysis of the sleep state. Swapiti means he or she sleeps. And there is a very interesting Vyutpatti Artha, some kind of a derivation done by the Shruti herself. And what does she say here? Swam apito bhavati. The person is full of themselves, and in a nice way. Okay, yeah, the person is filled with their own nature. But aren't they filled with their own nature when they are awakened, when they are in the waking state? Sure they are. But they are also filled with something else. What? Too much of jivatvam. That is what is the interfering thing. Of course, the purnata, which is the fullness, which is understood, which is experienced in sleep, we must not take it that only in sleep am I ananda. If we take it like that, we make a very big mistake. That means in order to have moksha, one has to keep on sleeping. Now that cannot be right. And so therefore, this is so the point is, one is Purna. And somehow, to translate Purna as full is not quite, it's not quite a happy translation, even though that's what it means. We can say fullness, but I like to use the word limitless. So Purna means there are no limits. In sleep, there are no limits. In the waking state, that same Ananda, that same Purnatvam, Purnata is experienced, but with it is inhibited. What is it inhibited by? Your own editing, your own mind, the ahankara that comes in the way and edits the happiness and writes a bhashya on the happiness and says, well, this is not okay. And then another tika, another small commentary is written and says, this is not okay, I should have got this, but then I'm not getting this. And also to throw some salt in the wound, to sprinkle some salt on the wound, the other person who I never particularly cared for has got it. You see, there are two problems here. So I didn't get it, problem number one, and that is bhashya, and then the tika is somebody else got it. And so therefore, the purnata is inhibited, always constricted, always just one is experiencing life in slices. And just like, when you want to look at some bacteria, you take or something to study, you take a section of this particular organ which is infested with a bacteria, kind of a cross section, and put it under the microscope. So like that, one is experiencing life truncated, punctuated by one's own criticisms, by one's own mind. And why is the mind critical? The mind is critical because the mind is completely become enslaved, hitched on to the raga and dvesha. And the raga dveshas make the ahankara and the mind enslave them and make them very critical. And then the whole world is seen through the subjective cornea of the raga and the dvesha, so that nothing is ever right because I didn't get what I wanted. And then on top of that, adding insult to injury, I got what I did not want. This is how life is. The whole life is, completely messed up like this. And so the waking state also one is Purna. In dream also one is Purna. In sleep also one is Purna. But this fullness, limitlessness, happiness is not experienced completely in the waking state. Why? Because the jiva is very much there. See, whenever there is too much jiva, then everything goes south. There is not enough Ishvara. Whenever there is too much jiva, And that what happens, the Ishvara means expression of that fullness. Ishvara's expression is hindered. That's why the Jiva sits and sings sad songs. Where are you? Darshan kab doge? When will you give me darshan? I'm pining for you. And who is singing? Ishvara with a big complex called Jiva. That is the difference between Ishvara and Jiva. Ishvara is all Ananda without complex. Jiva means Ishvara with a huge complex or a series of complexes. And so therefore the sleep state becomes a doorway, a dwaram, a doorway through which we can understand the uninhibited way in which the Atmananda is experienced, in which the Atma shines. Atma as Ananda shines. And so that's why this author also, some Shankaracharya who wrote this, keeps on talking about the sleep state. And we are, I think, into verse number 2 or 3 in the sleep state discussion. And then the next one will also talk about the sleep state. This is why it is so important, because if we can understand, if we can look at the sleep state and see the ananda that it yields and understand that this is my nature, two things become very clear. First is that I don't need any of my desires to be fulfilled in order to experience the happiness which is belonging to my own Swarupa, which is belonging to my nature. I don't need any desire to be fulfilled because there is nothing happening in sleep. There are no desires being fulfilled in sleep. And then the second mistake that one makes is thinking that the indriyas, sense organs, we can also include here organs of actions. So the sense organs and the organs of action have to be always active and have to be searching for various objects, and they have to be entertained, and they have to have some kind of a surfeit in order for me to be happy. And what is that happiness contingent upon? It's contingent upon the sense organs distracting me, meaning the ahankara, the mind, etc., from the own ignorance, the pain induced by self-ignorance, insecurity, etc. So, in the waking state, one relies on the sense organs to be always entertained. So much so that when you call some company, you call because something you want to change. You want to change your plane ticket. So you call. And then what do? They put you on hold. Just a minute while I look up your reservation. And then when you are on hold, some kind of music is playing. You can't even wait on hold for 5 minutes. You cannot be with yourself. That is the idea. And if the music were not playing, nobody would call that. And even though one may complain about the music, I was on hold with bad music for 15 minutes, but still, without the music, it would have been much worse. Trust me on this. And so, because there is that insecurity and emptiness, which is the manifest forms of self-ignorance, so much so the sense organs have to be constantly engaged. Something you have to keep seeing, and the eyes are completely assaulted. The sense organs are always being assaulted by all the things you can buy. Something has to be dancing, something has to be moving. And even if you go to a website, and everything is just stationary, you will just log out quickly. You will quickly click on that and go. But then there's something should be flashing. In fact, that program was called Flash. Okay, and then something should be flashing here, something should be, moving there, something should be, somehow you have to be engaged all the time. So the senses, so in the waking state, one gets into this wrong understanding because of self-ignorance that my happiness depends on the indriyas, the sense organs, and the organs of action being activated all the time, being engaged. This is what one calls being engaged. And even the hands, they cannot sit still. That's why, somebody designed some cube or something like, what is that, some Rubik's cube. And now it's gone because people who are, what is that, people who have a mathematical mind can figure it out in 5 minutes. And it's not a big deal. Now that's gone. And now that has been replaced by, what are they called? Fidget spinners. Yeah. Fidget spinners. And it's just it looks like a small galaxy. It's got little wings. And then you keep it in one hand. It's got a little hole in the middle. And then you keep on spinning. And then, of course, with its own momentum, it keeps on spinning. So here where the karmendriyas are engaged and the jnanendriyas are also engaged. I mean, this is fine, because if you are autistic, if somebody is autistic, this is, this is a wonderful thing, because people who are on the autism spectrum, they are very stimulated all the time, and they need something to calm them down. But most of the people in whose hands I have seen this are not autistic. And but what happens? It becomes a way to spend the time. And it's a relief for the parents also. Here, take this. That's why it's called fidget spinner. So you keep fidgeting, and then, or it makes, maybe it is, how do you, fidget spinner, how do you resolve the compound? So because you fidget, you spin, or it's the spinning that stops the fidgeting, I don't know. But anyhow, you get the idea. So this is, so something or the other has to happen. Otherwise, you always, of course, have the phone. That is the new yantra that keeps all the things engaged. So much so that we are creating a new kind of humanity. And then later on, hundreds of years later, when when they discover the bones and the skeletal remains of the people, in this generation, then they will see that the head is bent like this and the hands are like this, and one is, and the posture is terrible. And so they will understand, they will wonder what happened here. How did the human being adapt to their environment? This is how the adaptation has taken place. And so this is the problem with these assumptions, that the sense organs have to be engaged, the organs of action have to be engaged, and something has to be happening 24/7, 365 in order to forget myself. And the third assumption, logical corollary to this, is that happiness is when I forget myself. Happiness is when I forget myself. And because the remembering is too painful. Remembering means what? All the things I don't have come to mind. All the things I could not get come to mind. And one is not able to get past that, because the identity is very much invested in what one has and what one doesn't have. And that is the problem here. And so the sleep analysis has to be done properly in order to bring all these things to light. And as a segue, the Anandagiri, whose tika we are referring to, says, Atha, now Paramananda apekshaya. In order to understand, in order to begin the discussion on Paramananda, which is Swarupananda, which is the Ananda belonging to the self, in fact the Ananda which is the self. Kshudra Anandanam atituchatvam asti iti. So Paramananda apekshaya, compared to this Ananda which is centered on the I, Kshudra Anandanam atituchatvam asti. Atituchatvam asti means that compared to the Paramananda, any other Ananda that you get, that has the atituchatvam. And meaning that is nothing compared to the Swarupananda, because the Swarupananda, the Ananda centered on oneself, is not inhibited by one's own mind, by one's own limitations, sense of limitations centered on the I. Why? Because the mind here is gone to a causal state in sleep. अनुभवैकसिद्धत्वेन निरूपयति जाग्रत्याम् इति. Anubhava eka siddhatvena. So this point is proved. How is it proved? It is proved through an analysis of the sleep state, which is an experiential understanding. So it is proven. How? Jagratyam iti. Jagratyam means what? That happens to be the first word of the verse that we just chanted. And so let us, with this introduction, let us look at the verse. Jagratyam antaratma. Jagratyam means Jagrati avasthayam. In the waking state. What happens? Antaratma. Antaratma here means Jiva. Okay, the indwelling Jiva. Jagratyam antaratma. In the waking state, the Jiva Vishaya Sukha Krite. Krite means for the sake of. Vishaya Sukha. Vishaya Janita. Vishayena or Vishayaihi Janita Sukha Krite. Sukhasya Krite. So Vishaya Sukha Krite. So this Jiva, for the sake of happiness, born out of the engagement of the sense organs with the corresponding sense objects. What does the person do? Sukhakrite, for the sake of this happiness, aneka yatnan vidhasyan vartate, we have to add. Or, bhavati. So this jiva remains, vidhasyan remains, what? Bhavati remains, aneka yatnan vidhasyan, having initiated a series of efforts, various efforts. In fact, we can even call them frantic efforts. And what are these frantic efforts? In order to ward off sorrow, in order to generate some happiness, in order to keep the mind engaged, in order to be entertained, in order to forget oneself, all of which one thinks is needed in order to be happy. So, Vishaya Sukha Krite, object-derived enjoyments, for the sake of gaining object-derived enjoyment, then what happens? Aneka yatnan vidhasyan, having unleashed and remaining having unleashed various kinds of activity. And those, and if we look at the world today, the activities, there is no dearth of activities. And you can go bungee cord jumping. And I have told you many times, those interested in that are remembering their previous life as spider. Yeah, because you go like this, then you come up, then you go like this, then you come up. And so that samskara has not yet gone. So one is attracted to this sport. Rock climbing. Why do you have to climb the rock? There it is very, very clear. Previous samskara of mountain goat life has come to fruition, and then this kind of a hobby, because you see, this hobby is not interesting to everybody. To those that are interesting, they have an affinity, there is some explanation. But what if you are wrong? If people tell me this, what if you are wrong? What if I can prove I was not a mountain goat in my last life or any of my lives? Well, then it is very clear that you are getting ready to become a mountain goat in the next life. Simple. So it's either this or that. See, karma, you can never be wrong. Because as Bhagavan Krishna says, Gahana karmano gatihi, the ways of karma are extremely mysterious. You don't know what they are. You don't know how to, you don't know how to engage with this karma. You don't know what kind of explanation, anything goes. And so like this, so rock climbing and some, and skydiving, last life, hawk, eagle, these kinds of things, and hot air balloon, something, so many things, so many activities are there. And then these are recreational activities. And I'm just coming back from the Bahamas. I saw all this, this skydiving, and then what is that, a scooter on the ocean, okay, jet ski, okay, it's like a scooter. I first, when it came by, I couldn't even see, it was just like a flash of lightning. And so then afterwards I was educated about what it was, and then I asked questions about what it was, because I knew sometime it will be of use, in the teaching situations. So nothing is wasted. And so therefore this whole thing is so interesting. These are just recreational activities. This is when when you have finished your work, and then when you have some hobbies are there, and this is what you want to choose and select certain some what should I say, thrilling hobbies. Thrilling means mind numbing. You shouldn't even, you should just that's why these scary things people love, because one has to override the mind in order to engage in these kinds of sports. Falling from the sky, so to speak, and then going up, going down, jumping and riding a scooter on the ocean, all these things, you have to somehow override the mind, and that is what one wants to do. And so these are just recreational activities. But what about what the activities called occupation? What is one's occupation? I am a doctor, I am an engineer, I am this, I am that, I am a teacher. So many things are there. And all that is also based on desire, also based on certain desires. Some desires are altruistic, like somebody says, I want to start a non-profit corporation so that I can help some people. But still, that's also a desire. Why? Because by helping, why do you want to help? If you ask them, I feel good. You see, it's not about the people you help. It is plainly for feeling wonderful within oneself. So, aneka yatnan vidhasyan. So, having initiated lots of activities, what happens? Shramyat. Shramyat means completely is exhausted. What is exhausted? I should say, are exhausted. What? Sarva indriya aughaha. Aughaha samuhaha. So the group of all indriyas are tired. After engaging in this much mind-numbing activity, terrible kinds of, scary activities, thrilling activities, enjoyable activities, activities for the sake of earning a livelihood, all of them we have to include. Other kinds of activities like going to somebody's house, doing this, doing that, cooking, cleaning, everything is there. And so all these activities, one is sick and tired. And he puts it very well. One is not sick and tired. The indriyas which are in charge of these activities, through whom these activities are funneled and who are constantly at the helm of these activities, they get tired. Staring at the screen for so long, what happens? Tired. Eyes are tired. And then they are saying now that if you put on headphones, for 10 minutes, then there is some kind of hearing damage. If like sometimes people like to turn it up. So if you put on headphones, you have to put it very, very softly. Otherwise, there is some kind of a ear damage. This was talked about very nicely by Nachiketa in the Kathopanishad. And what does he say when Lord Yama gives Nachiketa the unasked boon of all kinds of celestial musicians? I will myself send Gandharvas, Kinnaras, Yakshas. These are celestial musicians and celestial dancers. And what are the celestial dancers? Urvashi, Menaka, Rambha. They will all come to your kingdom. And then I will send you some cars. Cars means rathas. So some kinds of chariots I will send from heaven. And then when you take it out for a drive, along with celestial horses to pull them, and when you take out your vehicle for a drive, everybody will be envious. They will say, here goes Nachiketa, look at him. OMG, where did he get that? Limited edition. I would like one of this. Everybody will be looking, and you will be the stock of everyone's envy, and you will feel powerful. So I'll give you all this, and a small condition. Sign on the dotted line here. And what does it say here? It says you will never ask for that knowledge, knowing which everything is as well known. You will never ask for that knowledge which is beyond all dualities of good, of bad, of past, of future, present, everything. You will never ask for that knowledge of that oneness. You just sign away and then take whatever you want, plus anything else you want. I'll give you a long life. Ayuhu Vrinishwar. And then I'll give you a stellar lineage. Putra Pautran Vrinishwar. People who, it's not just enough to have Putra, and Pautra means grandchild, Putra, children, offspring. So they should all be very exalted. They will all be famous. And so this is what I will give you. And I'll give you all this. And then Nachiketa's response is just amazing. Anybody else would have said yes, and signed off, and then taken all these things. In fact, Lord Yama confesses that he himself signed on the dotted line and settled for something far less. Even though he knew that, even though he knew that Brahmaloka, going to Brahmaloka is not the end all of this life. He knew that. Even that is a finite, because it is based on karma. Anything that's based on karma gives certain karma phala. Karma finite, action is finite, karma phala also finite. And so he knew that very well. Even knowing that also, what did he do? He performed what is now called the Nachi, what he christened the Nachiketa Agni. This particular homa performed 3 times. Then we'll give one, we'll assure that one is a celestial. He got curious. Oh, look how happy the devas are, and look at me here, a human being. So then he quips, Adhruvaihi, Dravyaihi, Praptavan Asmi, Dhruvam. So Dhruvam means I have what is called permanency in my job. Nobody can take me out until the end of the kalpa. But still, the end of the kalpa will come. I'm still finite. My satisfaction based on the job is still finite. And so I have a certain kind of a dhruva. And then anityaihi dravyaihi praptavan asmi dhruvam. So by the use of anitya means finite dravyas, finite materials, I am now gaining this certain kind of infinity, infinity within quotes. So because it is also eminently finite. But then what does Nachiketa say? Nachiketa, just in a very famous verse, says, this indriyanam tejaha jarayanti. Jarayanti means the sharpness of the indriyas wear out in time, and also wear out with abuse. If you abuse the eyes a lot, then naturally they will not be able to see well. If you abuse the ears a lot, again, same thing. They will not be able to do their job. And that is what happens partly due to abuse and partly due to age. Even if you are not staring at the computer, after 40 one is going to need glasses. This is the law of life. And so that doesn't mean you say, oh, might as well stare at the computer. That's not the point. The point here is jarayanti indriyanam jarayanti tejaha. And then Shvobhavaha, there is no tomorrow for this martyaha, for this mortal. And Indriyanam Jarayanti Tejaha, the sharpness of the Indriyas are worn out by age and abuse, overuse. And as a result of what? As a result of that, the enjoyment is naturally less. Like if you tell an 85-year-old, let us go skydiving, they will not be interested. Hopefully not. Okay, yeah. And so they will not be interested because it's okay, doesn't matter. Those days are gone. Now, if I can walk from my house to the yard, I'm happy. I don't need all these things. So what was at 30 is not, the drive is not there, and Bhagavan takes care of this because there is apohanam. Apohanam means the beauty of forgetting is there, and you forget a lot of things. And so the desire is already subsumed in the forgetting. So you don't even remember what you wanted, which is nice. And certain things go out of style, certain things go, get out of the system because you can no longer do them. And by 80, there are, 3/4 of the things in the world you cannot eat. You can't eat, just maybe some dal and rice if you are able to digest. You have to be thankful every day. That's about it. Nothing you can eat. And and then the food becomes an enemy. Oh, you, you belong to the cruciferous family. Get away from me. And then what about you? You belong to the nightshade family. And, don't throw a shade on my life. Get away. And then what about you? You belong to some other, some kind of other, whatever else is there. And so the food is divided into these various groups. And then by the time you look at the chart and decide what you can eat, it will just be fresh air and water. That's about it. Nothing else. Somebody gave me one map. Map means it's not a map like you think road map. This is called FOD map, okay? It's not food map, it's FOD map, FODMAP. And in this FOD map, and then that FOD stands for certain things that ferment in the stomach, certain things you should not eat. And then when you look at that, you look at the whole list of which are high FODMAP values, then there is no other option other than to get depressed. Okay, yeah, then you just look at everything. And then everything that you like and everything that you are drawn to is what? Is high on the FODMAP list. You have to eliminate. And then you become a fresh airian. That's what you do. Nothing else, no other option is there. And so Nachiketa responds, Jarayanti Tejaha. And then he concludes the verse, Tavaiva Bahaha Tavandritya Gite. Take away. Keep them with you. Keep your vehicles with you. Keep your dancers with you. Keep your musicians and singers with you. I want the knowledge of that which never comes to an end, which is myself. And so here, this is what, Shramyati means they all get tired. Shramyat, Sarva Indriya Aughaha. Indriya Aughaha, Shramyat, Adhigatamapi Sukham, Vismaran Yati Nidram. So, the group of sense organs get extremely tired after engaging in all these activities, and then what? Adhigatam api sukham, even after eking out some enjoyment from the activities, then they immediately want to forget what all had gone into getting that small joy or getting small pieces of joy from those activities. And then what do? They just, they get exhausted. And then Yati Nidram. And then their owner, the Jiva here referred to by the word Antaratma, the owner of these sense organs goes off to sleep. Yati Nidram. Nidram Yati, takes recourse in sleep, takes refuge in sleep. This is very interesting. You work. Why do you work so hard? So that I can have the weekend off. So 5 days, you just have mind-numbing work for 5 days, so that you can have 2 days just to not do anything. And then work all year, so that you can have 15 days off. to go to India or go wherever you want to go, and then and then after that go on vacation. And then you go on vacation, and then after coming back from the vacation, you need recovery time, and that is called staycation. Staycation means you don't tell anybody you're back, and you hide around in your own house like a thief. You don't draw up the blinds, and you just pretend you're not there. And of course, your neighbors are very solicitous, and they call the police because they are worried that there is some lights going on when they are not supposed to go on, and there is some water sound, etc., etc. And then you are in the situation of explaining to the police why you are behaving like a thief in your own house. So this is how life is. So this alternating cycle of activity, and then gone completely. And then this is the problem. And what is this indicating? This is indicating, of course, a very unhealthy lifestyle. But some Shankaracharya who wrote this says it's also indicating something which is very interesting. That despite the activities, despite the addiction to the activities and the addiction to the results of action thereof, and the desire which spurs the activities, one still wants to withdraw from all of that and go to sleep. What does that say? After investing so much in the activities, one is not able to enjoy them. One goes to sleep, one goes off to sleep in order to be rejuvenated. Like even coming back from the vacation, one is not happy with the vacation, one wants to get rid of the tiredness. By how? By going back into the nest of that which is the truth of the indweller. By just going into Ishvara mode. Sleep, henceforth we have to understand as Ishvara mode. The waking is Jiva mode, predominant. Of course, Ishvara is there everywhere. But this is predominantly Ishvara mode. That is where the recharge happens. That is where the rejuvenation happens. Not through the activity and the results thereof. Because the results always fall short. The activity having fallen short. Results are also falling short. Everything is just tired and distressed. There is also depression involved, which is going to come in the last line. And there is, because one is always querying the activities and is hypercritical of the results of action and of oneself as the agent of action and of the activity. One is constantly wanting to improve. Why? Because one wants to improve the output, and then at work, at play, everywhere. One wants to become better and better and better, because one cannot accept oneself as one is. And therefore what happens? And therefore one is tired and immediately enters sleep. Why? Vishramaya. Beginning of the third line. Vishramaya. In order to rest. Where? Swarupe, in oneself. And he says, Tu Vishramaya Swarupe Tu Atitara Sulabham. Atitara Sulabham. Sulabham, easily gained. Easily gained. How? Atitara, comparative. This is the comparative. Tarap, comparative pratyaya. And so, Atitara Sulabham means much more easily gained, easier to gain this kind of a happiness than in the waking state with all the activities and all the results of action at hand. And with all the possibilities to keep the indriyas, the sense organs, entertained. And so, despite that, one prefers this kind of a thing because sleep is easily gained. How do we know? Look at what happens in Vedanta classes. How easily, even though one is enjoying what one is listening, that enjoyment somehow slinks into sleep, even without one knowing. See, this is experientially proved. How easy it is to go to sleep. No effort necessary at all. And then, tena cha atindriyam hi atitara sulabham Tena means compared to this, what is that? Sarvendriya Augham, the group of sense organs engaging in activities. So, Tena Atitara Sulabham. So, compared to that, this going to sleep is so effortless. And the sukha that is gained in sleep is called Atindriyam hi Sukham. Atindriya Sukham. Atindriya Sukham, don't think that you have to transcend something or whatever. No. Atindriyam means not based on indriyas. Not based on the happiness derived. The happiness is not based on indriyas. Is not based on the sense organs and their and their engagement with the sense objects. That is what is called Atindriya Sukham, where there is no connection at all, no connection of the sense organs to the sense objects. No connection, because the sense organs are asleep and the sense objects are not there in sleep, yet there is so much happiness. And in fact, it is a unbridled, limitless happiness, because the sense organs do not delimit, the mind and the ahankara do not delimit the enjoyment that is sleep, which is the enjoyment of one's own self. There is nothing else, which is what is here the object of enjoyment in sleep. In sleep, there is no object of enjoyment other than the subject, which is oneself. Still, that sleep is preferred to this frenetic activity. So, Atindriyam hi Sukham Sarvottamam Syat. It is the best kind of sukha in sleep. Sarvottamam means much more. Uttamam means more, the superior, most, happiness. Most happiness one derives in sleep. Syat. And then why the hetu is given here in the compound in the fifth case. Parinati virasat. Parinati virasat means parinatya virasam yati. Parinati virasat. So parinati means change. Virasat means, the virasa means disgust. Whatever in the waking state is gained, it doesn't take long for it to turn into disgust, to turn into a source of distress, to turn into a source of unhappiness. Why? Because for two reasons. One could be external. External disgust means you can't get what you want. So therefore it turns into sorrow, disgust. Or it could be also because of the overuse of the indriyas. The sense organs are in a state of hyper stimulation all the time, and then there is a surfeit of that activity. How long can you go skydiving? After a while you start to taste your lunch, okay, and then so you want to come down, and then how long can you go jet skiing? After a while you are tired, you have to come back. And then how long can you be at the buffet, if that is the source of happiness? Because we are only thinking of eyes and ears. What about the tongue? It's a very major source of happiness. The 3-inch tongue governs all the Michelin stars in the universe. And the 3-inch tongue governs what restaurants shut down and what restaurants remain open. Now, in COVID time, it took a break, but now it's all back. And so this 3-inch tongue, there's so many restaurants, Vietnamese, and this and that, and everything, and all kinds of cuisines, and all kinds of life forms, things that have crawled, things that have swum, things that have flown, things that have walked, everything is included. Things that have yet to be discovered by the mass of humanity is already served. And so this is something which is very, very powerful. Jihva, the tongue, and rasana also called, because the sense of taste. And so here, you go to a buffet, all you can eat. How much can you eat? That's why the company says all you can eat, because they know after a while you will get sick of this. Even if you love the desserts, you can have one plate, two plate, three varieties, four varieties. After that, you get a sick feeling, and this is what is called virasa. Where is the parinati here? It's an internal change. It's an internal parinati. The chocolate cake has not curdled or turned in any way. It looks very nice. It is the same as was on the buffet table just 5 minutes ago. Your stomach has curdled, and you're looking at it, you're sick of it because you already had four. And then you can't even imagine eating it for the next 3 months. And you notice yourself trembling a little bit because of all that chocolate and sugar and everything. You notice that you have an invisible tick, and you're restless and irritable. And so you're like, what is that thing with which they drill holes in the road, which goes like that, that kind of a drill. Without that drill, your body is going internally like that after 3-4 chocolate cakes. And so then you learn to leave it alone. This is called parinati virasam. And this parinati is happening inwardly. So either there is an outward change because you run out of chocolate cake, that is one scenario. And therefore then you are tired because you see on the buffet you reach late, and it is said 12 to 3, it's already 2:50, and you go straight for the dessert because you don't want to miss it. And then there is only one chocolate cake on the plate, and you run. You remember that you were good at running in school, and then you run to the buffet. And then what happens? Someone else is little bit faster than you. And then by the time you go, not only they have taken it off, they have inhaled it. And then you are giving them, all kinds of looks, but no use. Then there is virasa, there is upset, there is sorrow, there is disgust, everything. So that is because of the external situation. Then the internal situation we have already discussed. What is that? The chocolate cake is plentiful. But then you don't have the patience for it anymore. You cannot literally stomach it anymore. This is the truth with all the sources of happiness connected to the indriyas, connected to the sense organs. Very beautiful, usually we kind of gloss over, many texts gloss over and say, this indriya, the sense organ based sukha is finite, but here it goes out of the way to explain it very beautifully. So this parinati virasa takes place, meaning parinatya, because of the change, virasam yati, gets distressed, gets upset, gets even borderline disgusted, repelled by the very things that one was actively seeking. Then therefore, what parinati virasat indriya utthat sukhat cha. So indriya utthat, generated by the indriya, this sukha, this happiness is far more inferior to that which is atindriya. Atindriya means what? That which is where the sense organs are without a job, in sleep. Because even if somebody is deeply asleep and you take a plate of pakodas and pass it under their nose, they may not wake up. They may not wake up at all. And so that is the thing, And so therefore what? Therefore this kind of a happiness which is centered on the self, and for which the sleep becomes a very important corridor to explain this and to understand this, at least cognitively, that is what happens. So let us quickly look at the very nice tika is given. Let us look at that. So jagrat avasthayam antaratma jivah. So in the waking state, the jiva vishaya sukha nimittam aneka yatnan vidhasyan vartate. We saw this. In order to generate happiness, engages in various kinds of activities and remains engaged in them. Tatra, and he gives some that's why I wanted to read the tika, because he gives some very innovative example. Tatra vidwan. So first he takes the example of a scholar. a PhD who is going on a book tour and written a book, and then he or she is going on a book tour. And what does that look like? Deshe Paryatanat. So going from country to country, international book tour, goes from one place and goes and sells the book, peddles the book. And what do? You tell the bookstores, and then you do book signing, and you give a little spiel about the book, and then people buy the book and you sign it for them. But then what happens? A scandal has broken out. There is some bad behavior in one of the countries. Dushila Prabhuna. Because of this scandalous behavior, Bhartsanat means the book tour ends in a kind of a Bhartsana means criticism to the reputation. Comes back intact, but not with the reputation. Leaves the reputation in one of the countries and comes back to show the finiteness of this activity. One wanted to really do this. Oh, I really want to do this tour. I want to promote this book. I have written this book. I am the author. And then what? Behaved badly somewhere. And then, or somebody disproved what, that is also a possibility. And maybe the book was plagiarized and somebody just found you out as one was going through this book tour. So there was a outing of this person as a plagiarist, or there was something which the facts were completely wrong. Maybe the person made claims, oh, I had fought in the Iraq war, and then after looking at the name of all the people who had fought, this person's name was not there, and then so that lie was brought out. So Bhatsanath, having suffered a kind of an embarrassment, terrible embarrassment, international embarrassment, that is one example. What happens? What option is left for this Vidwan other than to go to sleep? Nothing. Okay? And then because you lick your wounds in the sleep. Then the next example is given also very engaging. Shurahatu Sangramadishu Prana Samarpanat. The Shura, the soldier, runs to battle, gets a high out of participating in the battle. Yes, I'm going to show them. And alas, we have a live example of Ukraine, Russia. Ukraine people are fighting so bravely. And unfortunately, many of them are getting killed. Many of them came back and then they wanted to fight, and then many of them got killed. Shuraha, very valorous, very brave, but yet getting killed. And then, because what did the Shura want? The outcome wanted to, the soldier wanted to be helpful in redeeming the country from external control, but then ended up just dying on the battlefield. Shuraha Sangramadishu Prana Samarpanat. And then Chorastu Deha Himsa Paryavasan Karma Karanat. And then the Chora, Shura and Chora, nice, very nice poetic thing. So here is the Shura, the brave one, and then this one is Chora. Chora means what? Thief. The person given to giving everyone vairagya, even of their possessions, even when they did not sign up for it. Okay, yeah. So what does the Chora do? Himsa Paryavasan Karma Karanat. Goes to relieve people of their belonging. And then what happens? The person who he chances upon to attack is well prepared. And then what? He goes to take it, and the person shoots the person in the leg or in the hand or something, and the Chora has to go straight to the hospital, where he is given a sedative, and after being chained to the bed, where he is given a sedative and put to sleep, because loses a limb in the course of this action. Tathaiva Garudadi Vidya Upajeevinah. Garudadi Vidya means this mining, this we can take either, Garuda means gold, emeralds, precious gems we can take, or gold. So Garudadi Vidya Upajeevinah means those who are these miners and who dig precious gems from the earth. They also, after that, what? They are so tired. Evam sarvopi janah swasva udyama atikramena vishaya sukhaya yatate. So all the people in this swasva udyama atikramena, meaning keeping on working for their whatever their hobbies, whatever their occupations are. Why? For the sake of Vishaya Sukha. तत्र तत्र शाम्यत् सर्व इंद्रिय औघः शिथिलीभूत करचरण वाग् व्यापारः. So what happens in the process? Tatra tatra, in each of these situations, they all get tired along with their sense organs, which are shithili bhutah, paralyzed. What are they? Sense organs and organs of actions. Kara charana vag vyaparaha. So hands, legs, speech, etc. they are paralyzed. Puman, the person, vidhivashat, praptam api vishayam vismaran vishramaya hridyakashavasthite swartmarupe kshanam nidram yati. So vidhivashat praptam api. So even though they gained whatever they wanted to gain, there is no more energy to enjoy it. So forgetting what they have gained, they pine for vishrama, rest. And then where do they go for rest? They go into the space in the heart. They take a little vacation back to their self, swatma rupe, back to their own form, original form, without needing the indriyas. And in one kshana, in one moment, they are asleep. Aprapte vishaye samudvignasya vishrantyai nidra eva sharanam. And he gives a little commentary here, and he says, I'm going to go 2 minutes over, okay, so that we don't have to take it to the next class. So aprapte, meaning in the event of not gaining vishaya sukha, in the event of not gaining the happiness based on their activity, then what happens? Samudvignasya, for the person who is disenchanted, samudvigna, nicely disenchanted, disillusioned, hopeless. Vishrantyai, for that kind of a person to rest. What that person needs is not another information overload or sensory overload. Nidra eva sharanam. Sleep alone is the refuge, because then you forget. Next day morning you are ready to go at it again. That is the idea. Tena karanena, because of this, indriya utthat sukhat, compared to the happiness derived from the indriyas, atindriya sukham sarvottamam. So sleep sukha is much better than indriya sukha, because the sleep sukha is closest to atmananda. Tatha atitarala sulabham, much more easy to get. Why? Vishaya sukha prayasa apekshaya. Instead of trying to get something which 100 other people are competing for, it is much better to go to sleep, because there is no competition in sleep. And then alpa prayasa sadhyam, gained with very little effort. Tatha atiprayasa sadhyam kimapi vishaya sukham kshanabhanguram ante cha virasam ityaha. Furthermore, he says, because everything in the universe is finite, all the things that one is engaging in, kshanabhangura means finite. Because of that, one is left holding the tears back. Always the tears are ready to flow. Disappointment is never far away. Disillusionment and hopelessness are never far away. Kim bhutadi indriya sukhat. What kind of indriya sukha? If you ask, he says, parinati virasat. Pariname dukkha pradat. Parinati virasat means that at the end of which turns into sorrow. All happiness that is gained, which is centered on the self sense organs being entertained, are going to turn into sorrow. This is the viveka, this is the moral of the verse here. This is where it wants you to go. And what is the next verse? More about the sleep state, but from a slightly different angle, quoting the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which we will see next week. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Yeah, very nice.